D-Day is Hitler's absolute worst nightmare. He's managed to keep the Allies at bay for 4 years of the war now, and suddenly they're working their way through the interior of France, heading towards his battleground of Paris.
Hitler is underground in his bunker, knowing that the end is nigh.
It was the beginning of the end for Adolf Hitler.
This has been a long, hard road, and it is a great turning point in the war.
All right, your pitch has sold me. We'll buy it. Thank you.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm a very out-of-breath Brian Brushwood, but most importantly, that was some history stuff, and if I'm not confused, that looked like a little bit of Hitler in there.
There was some Hitler in there. That was a trailer for Netflix's upcoming World War II in Color, Road to Victory, a colorized docuseries on World War II, coming to Netflix December 22nd. There are a lot of programs out there called World War II in Color, so I cannot tell you if this is, this certainly is not the 2-hour documentary from a few years ago. This might be the thing that you can get on DVD from like 2 decades ago. No one is quite sure, but we'll find out December 22nd on Netflix.
Hey, nothing undermines the gravity of World War II like giving it the Ancient Aliens treatment.
And with that, we bring in one Merrill Barr, our Hollywood insider. Merrill Barr, what do you think about the very first ever in color depiction of World War II?
I think you sound very excited about it, which means that you've officially hit that middle age where you're always just interested in World War II, Brian.
What are you, a cop?
Yes.
Well, Officer Barr, let's get right to our primary target. Spider-Man No Way Home brought in $260 million in North American theaters over the weekend, passing Avengers Infinity War to become the second largest debut in history. Not just talking about pandemic. We're talking about in history, behind Avengers Endgame. Internationally, it brought in $340.8 million to make it the third largest worldwide launch ever, behind both Endgame and Infinity War. It's the first movie since March 2020 lockdowns began to pass the $100 million weekend mark. No Way Home collected $121 million on Friday alone. That's just on Friday, more than Homecoming and Far From Home collected in their opening weekends. And it's already the highest grossing film of the past 2 years. And as you might expect, they would like to make more of those then. Kevin Feige told the New York Times that Disney and Sony are already working on the next chapter. Referring to Amy Pascal, the former Sony exec who produces the Spider-Man series, Feige said, Amy and I and Disney and Sony are talking about, yes, we're actively beginning to develop where the stories head next, adding, which I only say outright because I don't want fans to go through any separation trauma like what happened after Far From Home. That will not be occurring this time. Of course, last time after Far From Home, there was a little breakdown about whether Spider-Man would continue in the MCU. Feige and Pascal have both now gone on the record saying we intend to stay in the MCU. Of course, anything's possible, Brian, but it looks like Spider-Man is kind of the most valuable thing in the MCU right now.
It's certainly the one that was able to get me out of the house and into the theater, but is it doing it for the right reasons? Somebody asked the question, and I think it's worthy of asking, like part of not going and seeing Shang-Chi or not going and seeing the Eternals was because I knew they were eventually going to be on the small screen or whatever. But there was a desperate energy to not feel like the sucker, to not feel like I missed out on a moment that drove me to the theater not once but twice over the past weekend. Do you think that fuels it, or is it just that everybody loves Spider-Man that much?
So what you're hitting on is exactly what I mentioned on Twitter after the numbers came out. I'm not looking forward to the wrong lessons that Hollywood learns from this box office, because The Matrix is not going to open at $200 million next weekend. It's not going to open probably at $100 million next weekend. It's literally all you've proven with this opening is that people, the desire to be part of a moment will always overpower someone's desire to stay alive. And of course, I do think it is a moment like booster. I think that because of where boosters are, because of where cases are, because of the news about Omicron, that it might be milder, that even though it's more infectious, all these things combined to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm willing to risk it for an almost sure thing. Spider-Man is a sure thing.
There was something, Tom, to the moment that, like, we all knew Hurricane Omicron was about to strike, but it wasn't exactly here in Texas just yet. And it felt like that was our excuse where it's like, well, if we're ever going to go out as a family and go see a movie, now is the moment. And of course, almost certainly that's when we all got infected with Omicron.
Possibly. Without going too far down the rabbit hole, I think we could spend a lot of time psychoanalyzing people's response to Omicron versus what the actual risks might or might not be. The fact of the matter is, keeping it in the realm of talking about movies and TV shows, whatever is true, there's a breaking fact here, right? We're still in a pandemic and we have a new wave that is getting a lot of press. And so Spider-Man No Way Home bringing in $260 million is incredibly impressive. I think we've touched on a few of the reasons why that would be. One might be, I want to go see a movie before everything shuts down again, possibly. So this is the one. But that could have been any movie that was out, right? It wasn't just that, if that was a factor. It was also, I don't want to get spoiled. I know there's going to be some fun twists in this, and I don't want to know what they are. I don't want someone on Twitter, because I don't want to go to the trouble of curating my feed because it's a lot of work. I don't want somebody to accidentally spoil me. So I'm gonna get out there and watch it. But also, I think the gimmick of letting people know one of the twists ahead of time in the trailer, saying these characters from previous Spider-Man movies are going to show up, also drove people to the movie. In fact, I think that this movie in particular is so well constructed, if you like that. And there's definitely a few of my friends out there who didn't like this movie, thought it was overly fan service, and I get where they're coming from. But if you're like, no, this is what I wanted, this is what I was here for, which it seems like the majority of people were, then you're going to enjoy this anyway. Even if you know what's coming, it's the fun of watching it happen. It's without getting spoilery, I'll say the way they executed wasn't just like, and here's the twist, great, now they fight. It was, you know what? We're actually going to play with it. We're actually going to give you motivation. We're actually going to build up a reason why this character is here and where they're coming from and how they may have developed off screen in the past. And I think that was a key to people enjoying this, which is what brings me to you, Brian. You obviously went to see it first because you wanted to be part of a moment. Why'd you go see it the second time?
Because I went with all of my family except for one child, and I went in knowing that I was going to go watch it again the following day. Like, whether it was good or bad, it's like, I'm taking on the responsibility. I'm going to watch it tonight with most of the family. I'm going to watch it tomorrow with the rest of the family. Whoever wants to join me can. Okay,
so this was going to happen no matter what.
Correct. And I also knew that almost certainly I would pick up more. Like, even if it was bad, I would have gone and seen it a second time. Yeah.
But back to Tom's point though, Brian, what were in your head? What were you putting the odds at that it was actually going to be bad? Like, again, when I say sure thing, there is probably no surer thing than an MCU Spider-Man.
Unless it has the word Sony associated with it, in which case it becomes a gigantic question mark, because let me remind you that the Marvel logo appears before Venom. Objectively, one of the worst movies I've seen in the last 5 years.
I think that the sure thing matters. Like, Matrix is not a sure thing. West Side Story was not a sure thing. Venom's not a sure thing. Even though Venom did well. I mean, West Side Story tanked, but I'm not surprised by that. But it was the combination of a sure thing, pent up, like, I really want to go to the movies. We haven't been there in forever. You know, it's the holiday season. Boosters are out, at least in the States. Like, the moment, I think it was just everything came together in the right way. Now, what I cannot explain $260 million. Like $200 million, sure, but I think that's where it goes from, yes, this is everything makes sense, to wow, that's actually really impressive that you pulled that $260 million now.
And it's in the class of Endgame and Infinity War, which were the culmination of years and years and years of setup. So in that respect, I think one of the other magic tricks they may have pulled off here was retroactively making this years and years of setup.
Correct.
By pulling in previous Spider-Man storylines, right? As you know from the trailer, you're going to see that. And so I definitely had that smile on my face that I had during the first Avengers, the first time we saw the Avengers assemble together. I had the same smile I had on my face in Guardians of the Galaxy when I was just watching a great crew that was entertaining me and making me feel great. I had that on my face in this, and I think a lot of people did and wanted to go for the ride again.
Yep.
Right? They came out of the theater and said, you know what? That was super fun. I want to do it again, because it's not just about the plot twists. In fact, I would contend, and this isn't one of those like spoilers aren't a problem, I would contend that even if you know the plot twists, you can enjoy this movie almost as much as you would if you didn't, because
Agreed.
There's so much more to the journey in this particular instance.
And we'll discuss that in spoiler in time, but I think it's safe to say that if Avengers 1 was a, 5 to 7 year rubber band being let go, snapping forward, and Avengers Endgame was an extraordinarily 17, 18 year rubber band going, I'm not going to lie, the latest Spider-Man movie is a 20-year rubber band, possibly even farther, depending on how you want to squint, being snapped. And it does
like
feel
you didn't
very
even
special
know this rubber band was being pulled today until today,
correct,
which is pretty fun. Yeah. Well, folks, we don't have a 20-year rubber band, but we do have an 8-year rubber band that's been being pulled. And it was that rubber band that Brian and I have been pulling.
What we're asking for was, would you give us $1 to...
We've been waiting. We've been pulling this rubber band. You, the one person listening to Cordkillers who hasn't backed us on Patreon or stopped backing us, we've been pulling that rubber band, waiting for that moment where you jump in and you back us. Today's the day.
I see 4 digits there. You guys had a 3-digit quarantine? Is that the deal?
If you weren't one of my bosses, why I ought to... look, I wanted to do the pity party thing and say that we lost our one rubber band, but now Tom has boxed me into a narrative corner, and I have to say thank you to the 1,000 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent right here on Cordkillers, bringing you the news you want. I was trying
to do the rubber band can't be let go until a person who's not a patron becomes a patron. It was Merrill that then put us in the narrative corner of...
Look, I'm not here for the blame game. Ladies and gentlemen,
we're not like sorry. 3 Spider-Men all pointing at each other, for goodness sake.
It's all my fault.
I want to be better than Tom Merritt. I want to be better than Merrill Barr.
And that takes money.
Exactly. Okay, look, I can't take notes while I'm trying to clean up your mistakes, Tom. Thank you to everybody who's a boss over at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Please, just help us so this can end. Let's talk about how to watch. Streaming services have to keep prices low to get people in the door, but at a certain point, then they have to raise those prices to get the balance sheet to look more normal. So beginning January 23rd, the newly independent DirecTV Stream, no longer with AT&T directly bankrolling it, will raise prices. Depending on the package, price may go up anywhere between $4 and $10 per month. And they're doing an interesting thing with regional sports. Instead of one fee for everybody, the regional sports fee will change depending on your zip code, because there are different companies that run the regional sports networks in different regions. So some might rise a couple of dollars a month for those regional sports, whereas others may fall if you're in a place where they have a better deal. This battle over costs can also be aimed at the providers instead of the customers. YouTube TV, for instance, called Disney's bluff and dropped all Disney networks, including ESPN, FX, ABC, and such, on Saturday, December 18th, after the two sides could not agree to a new deal. That seemed to work, as the deal was then struck the next day and channels returned on Sunday. I think the question we have, and likely many longtime followers of the show have as well, is how fast we can move past the growing pains section into a more stable situation, or whether these kinds of services are even going to survive at all. Is there a world, Brian, where the cable replacement service just dies out altogether?
Never underestimate the power of inertia. And I think wherever you are is where you want to continue to be. I think that all of us have a pretty good guess as to what our initial starting price was on all of our services. I think almost none of us know what we currently are paying because we don't pay attention to that. We've talked before about how whether you like sports or not, you subsidize them by, ESPN being the number one, carriage fee on cable television. But I found out today on NPR, of all things, what the number two cost is. Do you know, Tom?
Sure. What is it? What does NPR say it is?
According to NPR and whatever pundit they got on there, it's Fox News.
Because that sounds like something NPR would say.
They're saying they might be wrong. I was all excited.
I don't know if they're wrong or not.
I was all excited to bring like this new nugget of information and think about how we're all information news siloing ourselves. And maybe that's just as powerful as sports siloing. Doggone it. Now I'm going to have to go fact check. Well, journalism's hard, Tom.
I know, but it could be news, right? It could be that, sports is number one, but news is number two, whether it's Fox, MSNBC, or somebody else. And I could see Fox News being the ratings champ, being the more expensive one, which was just, I guess where I'm going with this is all of this is to say, how much longer are people going to keep paying for the service that aggregates all of those? Is this a fight over a disappearing section or a newly emergent one that we've all, at least myself, I've been assuming that this is an emerging replacement. Like we're all in the future, that old cable delivered service it's just going away. I think we all agree on that. And I've been assuming, and then there will always be some service that brings you live stuff. It'll have your ESPNs, your broadcast channels, etc. But maybe it won't.
Before I turn everything over to Merrill, I watched one of those 30-minute think pieces on YouTube about Max Headroom, a beloved cyberpunk, kind of snarky parody of a late-night talk show, computer-generated character. And there was a good, 4 minutes dedicated to explaining what television looked like in the early 1990s, late 80s, and about how you couldn't pause it, you couldn't go back, there was never any context or anything like that. We have defended the idea of cable packaging for a very long time, but in a world where anybody born after, 2008, doesn't even know what we're talking about, I don't know how much longer we even need to defend that or claim it's going to be around.
The one thing I'd say is I don't think we're dealing with growing pains anymore. I think we're just dealing with pains. I think the world has shifted. Just because Time Warner still exists, just because Comcast still exists, doesn't mean that the transition hasn't already taken place. They're just another player in the game. They're no longer a monopolized service, at least on their cable offerings front, because I can get internet from them and then go to YouTube TV. I will say for these digital outlets that what's really going to matter is how they play their pricing. I know that YouTube TV lost me as a subscriber after the first year because I signed up at $30 a month, and I was like, that's a really solid price for the live TV offerings that they had. This is like the beginnings of it. And then a year in, they said just out of nowhere, hey, we're going up to 50, and I canceled them. It's like, you don't do a 20, you're not going to keep me at a $20 price hike. What
did you replace it with?
I didn't. I just
Bingo.
Straight up, I didn't keep any of it. But that
so it wasn't. I'm going to redefine it from the outside. You didn't cancel it because it was too expensive. And you wanted to get a cheaper version. You canceled it because $30 was all it was worth to you. $50, you're like, I'd rather live without it. And I think that's where I'm pointing is we're seeing more and more
doesn't
live
have
TV
value.
go into ESPN Plus. We're seeing more live TV, both sports and other things, go into Peacock, go into Paramount Plus, to the point where that may be where this road ends, where you don't need a DirecTV stream or a Sling TV because all of the content just ends up distributed out into the apps.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I do. And maybe it's that live offerings can no longer be an extra price. Like Netflix should, I've long since held the belief and said on this show, Netflix should be offering linear channels the way with all of their content. Like, imagine a world where, the new Witcher season's coming out and it's going to debut the season. Like, it's going to be, the launch is going to be determined by the airing at like 8 p.m. Eastern of the season premiere on Thursday night. There it is on the linear channel. And then off that, now the entire season is available. We all as a people get to have that collective singular moment of boom, let's all watch it together. Just this one episode, just to bring us into the fold.
So
I think that matters.
You've definitely talked about this before, but it sounds like you no longer feel like this is going to happen.
I don't know. Like, I think linear's proving, like Peacock and Paramount Plus, obviously now bringing in linear. I think there is a true drive to have linear programming, but not have the linear be the feature, not have the linear be the selling point. The linear maybe has to be like a special add-on to the subscription. It can no longer or it's free like Pluto. Like, but it can't be like, I'm not going to pay $30 a month to YouTube TV for access to live channels when that's the selling point. Does that make sense? Like, that can't be the selling point anymore. Yeah,
the linear channel is just an option in the service you get, right? I'm in Peacock, so I want to either pick a show to watch or, you know what, I'll just go into this grid thing here and choose to watch the Rotten Tomatoes channel because Tom's wife runs it and it's amazing.
So I would say the only flip I might encourage people to consider is that I strongly suspect that we're more dialed in on pain points than opportunity points. And so likewise, don't focus on what the possibilities of watching stuff live along with everybody else is. Instead, focus on what makes you mad when you click play on a YouTube video and have to sit through 4 whole seconds of an ad before you can skip it. That, to me, I strongly suspect will be a driving factor, the driving factor.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because the reason I've resisted the idea of cable replacement going away is because people don't want to have to think about, well, do I want to get Peacock and Paramount Plus and Tubi and the Disney bundle in order to watch the NFL? And so that needs to be fixed before that transition could fully happen. It may never be fixed, but there has to be a way for that to be easy, to be manageable. I think the cable companies are trying to position themselves as that, which is like, hey, that Xfinity Flex box, you just check off the boxes of what you want, and then you'll get one bill, and they're all on the one box, and we'll tell you when the game is on, and you won't have to think about which apps are which is incredibly clever. I don't know that they end up winning that game, because Apple TV can do that too, Roku can do that too, Google TV can do that too. And they offer a lot more flexibility than Xfinity Flex, et cetera, do right now. But that to me is the next phase, is who's going to have the platform that makes it easy to manage getting the things you want without having to keep track of it all.
I'll try to keep it short, but this is the part where I tend to run off into the fields and speculate wildly. And Tom, cut me off whenever you want. But we already live in a world where we employ virtual guardians in the form of VPNs, where you're like, hey, I need to hire you. You're muscle. You're an AI bot. I need you to trick all of these ads to not knowing what country I'm from, encrypt everything, just scuttle everything around, make them real confused. Thanks, appreciate it. How far off are we from employing a Twitter bot where you're like, hey, I don't like it when everybody's talking about a thing and I don't really get what they're talking about. Now, right now, Twitter tries to offer that by saying these are top trending things that are happening or whatever. But you can't click on it and suddenly be at the right moment all caught up with everybody else. And I think we're not too far off from that being a third-party service.
You kind of lost me a little bit. You're talking about a third-party service that manages the discussion around what you're watching.
Correct. A third party that you trust.
Yeah, okay.
So we trust a third-party VPN to watch us watch the internet. We allow it to watch us go wherever we want. We trust it to keep its mouth shut, right? And we trust it to lie about where we physically are to all of the ad bots and all of that stuff. So the pop-ups aren't exactly relevant to what we're looking for. Something like that, but for cultural moments, feels like it's around the corner, where it's like everyone's talking about this thing. I want to click one button. I don't want to have to do no research. I don't want to have to read no articles. I don't want to have to follow up or whatever. Just let me click a button and suddenly I'm there with the rest of the world watching whatever the next good/bad thing is that everybody's talking about.
So I couldn't get to see Spider-Man No Way Home on Friday. I couldn't see it until Monday. So I want to experience that on Monday, even though it all happened on Friday.
Actually, so maybe in this fictitious
Is that what you're saying? I'm asking. Yeah.
So you click on a thing, you're like, what is this? And the bot says, everyone's talking about Spider-Man. Have you seen it? Yes, no. And you're like, yes, I have. And it's like, great, you get this track. And it's like, no. Do you care about spoilers? Yes, no. Great, you get this track.
Yeah. That's a next door neighbor to our topic here, which is managing like the actual
I
apps
warned
and
you.
stuff.
This is wild Brian speculation territory. I'm a golden retriever out in the woods.
I'm helping the audience understand why we're off on this path in the woods separately. But I get where you were coming from now, which is like, okay, yeah, there's the AI box that takes care of me watching this stuff. Now let me move over to the conversation about that, which is interesting. Also, for those of you who know about VPN, no, I did not correct any of the minor mistakes Brian just made in describing it because it was beside the point and it wouldn't have helped clarify the discussion at all.
But here's the important thing. If this becomes a thing, then it really does collapse any purpose to having cable as an aggregation service or as a buffet that you're hiring.
Right. Because I can have my bot know you like these kinds of things. I'll make sure you can watch them. And when you watch them, you get the conversations around them. Yeah.
So are we saying that live television is not a selling point?
I don't perceive it much as one.
I think live selling is a feature, not the only selling point. Yeah.
In fact, actually, of the four of us, quick poll, how many of you guys that's a make or break issue live? Bryce?
It is for me.
I like seeing some stuff live. Sure.
Yeah.
Like
because
what?
of the sports.
Sports.
Oh, sports. Okay. Yeah. Hey, I'll go to a bar.
But to me, it doesn't, I don't, if I can get all the live stuff with other services, I don't need a live service. That's just kind of a sort of an inherited quality of the previous system. All right. That's how we're going to get it. But what are we going to watch? Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
Protocol has an article up about a company called Loop that provides service to restaurants and bars. Loop bought 30-year-old Screenplay. For 30 years, Screenplay has done a version of a service that charges $300 a month, gives you a Dell computer, and then when they got bought by Loop, Loop said, you don't need a Dell computer. We don't even need to charge you. This is a free service. It's going to be ad-supported, runs off an Android-based box. We'll give you an interface where you can upload your business's logos and cards that'll show in the interstitials, and you'll get hundreds of free streaming channels. Among its features are some caching that'll keep videos playing even if the internet goes out, and monitoring of nearby mobile phone signals. Now, don't get freak out. They're not like capturing your phone calls or even your IMEIs. They're just noticing like there's this number of signals, which gives the account of how many people are in the room so Loop can properly charge its advertisers. The channels on Loop are things like viral videos, sports like surfing, and a lot of music videos. In fact, it's testing watch parties that let the audience in the business, restaurant, bar, whatever, vote on the next song or video by text message. So it kind of works like a jukebox.
Would it be a fair comparison to call this kind of a Coke Pepsi dynamic between Atmosphere and Loop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking of Atmosphere when I was writing this up. I'm like, this sounds very similar to what Atmosphere does for sure.
And for anybody who has not been listening, Atmosphere used to be the Chive, then they rebranded, made the Chive the sub channel. Basically, they run out and they pay, like, hey, nice video of a puppy. Would you like $50? Great. And then they throw it in the bucket.
I know you've seen that a lot. I have not, and I haven't been out as much.
First of all, Atmosphere is based in Austin, so it makes sense that literally everywhere in Austin has it.
I must say, this is the first time I've ever heard of any of these services. I've never seen. Maybe I don't go to enough bars in LA, but I know I've not really stumbled into anything like this. The only thing I stumble into is just anything that's app-based, entertainment-wise, is the app-based jukebox now, where you can log into the app and select the songs without having to get up from your seat. But other than that, this is. It sounds fun. Anything that provides interactivity to the business patrons, I think, is interesting.
Also, it's another blow to the live TV service, right? Because it's like, well, why do I need to be paying DirecTV for a bar license when I could just have puppy videos and music going on?
That's interesting because I'm not dialed into the sports world. So when I go to, there's a place called Backspin that, I kid you not, conservatively has 25 to 30 televisions, all of which are tuned to various sports, in the moment, things happening. There are one or two of them that are tuned into Atmosphere, and they're all I watch. In fact, when I go with my wife, I position them with my back to those TVs so I don't, be rude to her. But if you added interactivity, and all of a sudden I could say, okay, enough cats, give me more dogs. Yeah, I think I couldn't stop myself.
All right, let's talk about Peacock's reboot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is just called Bel-Air. It's got a debut date, Super Bowl Sunday, February 13th. Interesting because normally the network with the Super Bowl will debut a major new series right after the game ends on the same channel as the Super Bowl. But this year, as we mentioned previously on Cordkillers, the Super Bowl is happening during the Winter Olympics. So NBC, which has both, will go from the Super Bowl right into the Olympics on the NBC channel. And they're going to use some of that promotional inventory that they would have devoted to a post-Super Bowl show to push people to Peacock to watch Bel-Air.
So I find this incredibly fascinating. And the thing that I wonder most is, will there continue to be a agreement that no one else gets a post-Super Bowl slot? Like, remember that year that Netflix dropped Cloverfield Paradox right after, right as the game ended, and they had a couple ads before leading into this is going to be on and I don't remember which network had it that year, but this is obviously NBC and it's Peacock, so it's okay. But I genuinely wonder, it's who's going to be the first to cross that line where maybe Paramount suddenly drops a new Star Trek even though Fox has the game that year. I definitely think this is the kind of thing that we could be entering new waters.
Well, and if we want to explore new waters that we're making stuff up, a thing we've never seen is a totally top secret series of Super Bowl ads to reveal a thing that nobody knew was about to happen. And you drop those ads and you're like, the game's over now, right now. There's a 12th Matrix movie, go. And you're like, what? Nobody had,
Yeah. This is not a spoiler to the plot of season 2 of The Witcher, but Netflix attached a trailer for the prequel to The Witcher called The Witcher Blood Origin to the last episode of season 2. It did not immediately upload the trailer elsewhere, though it has now. The Witcher Blood Origin coming in 2022, starring Michelle Yeoh, and will focus on the, quote, conjunction of the spheres. That's an event alluded to in the main show. It's also a new trend to embed a trailer as a post-credit scene, it seems.
Yeah, we saw that. I have thoughts about it. We'll talk about it when we talk about Spider-Man.
What do you think about this Witcher extended universe they're developing?
It's working out for. I mean, The Witcher is huge for them right now, and I'll be honest. Like, I am of the surprise train. I remember when I reviewed the original show, I was like, it's fun, and it's definitely the most. It was like, you remember that was the same year Game of Thrones ended, and it was definitely the most 1-to-1 comparison of like, you lost Game of Thrones, but here's The Witcher, which is almost exactly the same show. And I was like, look, it will help probably ease the fix. And people just fell in love with it. I don't know how much it was because of that song, which even I still hum. But like people fell in love with The Witcher. So, I mean, look, of course they're going to, work that cash cow as much as they can.
It's time to play What Does Brian Think of the Casting Announcements regarding a show he might be a little nervous about. This time, we're talking about the live-action Netflix series Avatar: The Last Airbender. Here are the announcements. Tamlin Tamita, who has been in Cobra Kai, will play Suki's mother, Yukari. Casey Camp Horinek, who you might know from Reservation Dogs, will play Gran, the compassionate matriarch of the Southern Water Tribe. Elizabeth Yu, who was in All My Love, plays Azula, the daughter of Fire Lord Ozai. And Yvonne Chapman from Family Law will play the legendary warrior Avatar Kyoshi.
I am relentlessly, brutally optimistic about all reboots, full stop. End of statement.
Let me add, this is being showrun by a guy named Albert Kim, who I happen to know. And I will say I am very much happy to entrust the Avatar series to him because he is very good at what he
any
does.
of these casting announcements in particular strike you one way or another, either of you?
No.
Unfortunately, I don't dial in too hard on any of that, except for when the guy from Kim's Convenience was announced. I was very excited about that. But outside of that, these are new names to me.
Okay. So I didn't know if you might recognize the Cobra Kai one, but yeah. And that's what I was curious about. The USFL means the 1980s, if it means anything at all to most people. It was the last major U.S. league to try to go head-to-head with the NFL. There was the XFL, there's arena football, but the USFL was the last that tried to aim to be an equal. And the USFL is returning this April, now owned by Fox. It's unrelated to the original USFL in all but name, and it's probably not really trying to be a competitor to the NFL. NBC Sports and Fox Sports, though, are going to broadcast the games. NBC is going to show 8 on NBC itself, 9 on the USA Network, and 4 on Peacock. Fox will have 22 on Fox itself. Of course, it does own the league, and 12 on FS1. The USFL's 8 teams are going to play a 10-game schedule in a single host city.
Bryce, am I right in thinking that you were dialed in on the USFL?
I was into the AAF a couple years ago.
Got it. That's what it was.
And
okay.
that was trying to
like
be a farm. That was trying to be a farm league. So that wasn't trying to be head to head with the NFL.
I just wonder what the appetite is for year-round football. I think that what makes it special to people is that it has those 20 weeks with the Super Bowl playoffs. Like, it has those 20 weeks and everyone gets excited. And then it goes away, and you spend some time away from it. Like, I don't know if football has the year-round appetite that everyone keeps acting like.
Dude, I'm the same way about food. Why do people want food all year round? It's like you had a bunch of it during the holidays. I don't get it.
Didn't you just save some in your cheeks for the winter?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the big thing here. The thing about the AAF, which kind of stunk, was that there was a farm league, so it was. Older players who were not in the National League.
Did you watch the
players by definition, people who were either on their way up or on the way down.
Right.
Yeah.
Where if this is meant to be at that same competitive level, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, that would be more interesting to watch. But also in terms of ecosystem side, one of the dangers about having a farm league or another league is good players don't want to play too much because they could get injured, because they can ruin their body earlier than if they were just playing in one league. So it's partly zero sum, partly skill dependent. I hope if it's cool, if they're good games, I could try it.
Here's my one question, because you seem to be the football guy here. Would you have watched the XFL if COVID hadn't taken it down?
I wouldn't have watched the XFL.
Yeah, none of us would. Wait. Okay.
Because that's the goal. That was the goal. The goal of XFL was to be another. Sure. And the goal wasn't to be arena football. The goal was to be another NFL. in the long term. That's always
Yeah,
been
they
the goal of
did
the
a very
XFL.
poor job of it. Arena football is awesome.
And also there's the Vince McMahon element to it.
Right.
That they
And the
probably
Donald
now
Trump
owned by The
element.
Rock.
And
So-
Well, now
it's The Rock,
owned by The
but I don't know. I wonder really how different it is. So
look
I
at
think
this
it's
and
different.
I see what the NBA does, where they have summer NBA that gets on ESPN. It's actually well followed by huge basketball fans, but it's farm, right? It's not trying to be a competitor. It's actually run by the NBA. I see Winter League Baseball, Venezuelan League, Caribbean League Series. Doesn't get a lot of coverage, though. Even though baseball fans are aware of it and like it, you might see the championship on MLB Network or something. So it feels like, year round, I don't know. There's an appetite, but where the appetite and the demand meet up, not exactly sure. Yeah. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Starting with you, Merrill, something you've been watching lately.
The new G4 has been making me very happy. They've decided to go the route of being a streaming channel primarily that just happens to have a linear element on certain providers. But the primary business is every day, Monday to Friday, they do like 8 to 9 hours straight of streaming with various X plays and various Attack of the Shows and some other new programming. And they've leaned hard into that identification and that new classification rather of being that kind of network. And they've managed to do the impossible of they carried on the tradition. They still made it feel like the old thing, but with a whole new spin. All the new cast members are great. I think the new versions of X-Play and Attack of the Show are fantastic. All around, it just makes me very happy.
X-Play still has Adam Sessler.
It still has Adam Sessler, and AOTS still has Kevin Pereira, but that's about where the carryovers stop.
So the two descendants of ZD TV shows and the one continuous host from ZD TV all the way through G4, what's making it still work? Just checking.
Asking for a friend who is Tom Merritt.
I'm just curious. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what ZDTV is. Is that bad?
Move on.
Brian, what are you watching? Brian, what are you watching? Brian, what are you watching?
I'm watching Shadow's House on Funimation. We were watching it dubbed, but then we ran out of our free trial. Now we're watching it with subs, and it's very weird to go to subtitles from a dubbed version. Boy, my goodness, what a strange story this is. I trust it to have secrets to reveal to me. Which is why I keep watching it. My 14-year-old has already seen all of them, and my 17-year-old and I are along for her second lap. It's very weird. It's a weird show. All
right. That's cool. I wanted to give a shout out to Star Trek Discovery, which is a couple episodes in now on its latest season, and I'm liking it. It feels like it's moving towards a more Star Trek-y way of doing things. I think they finished their years-long attempt to gracefully transition from Brian Fuller's original weird template, which could have been great, but then he left, into something that is far in the future. So it's kind of away from canon, but still pulls from some of the main elements of Star Trek lore, and gives you a fresh look at them. There's an overarching monster that's going on, which is kind of new for Star Trek. Although think of the Dominion War and things like that. There's kind of a parallel in previous Star Treks. And I've really gotten to love this crew. So yeah, I think Star Trek Discovery might be hitting its stride. Maybe a little later than other Star Treks, but worth dipping into if you want to take a look at it.
Tom.
Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got an email from Scott. Scott writes, "Hello all. Brian turned me on to Defunct Land a while ago, and and that YouTube channel is really amazing. I have found that there are some seriously high quality YouTube channels out there that consistently put out amazing work. My initial professional background, this is what Scott says, is cartography. So I've really enjoyed the channel Atlas Pro. This channel looks at how the geomorphology of the planet affects climate, animals, and plants. It also goes into plate tectonics, into Martian landforms. The most recent videos are 25 to 35 minutes long, and some of the older ones are about 15 minutes. They're really well researched and informative. I suggest some of these videos as a starting point, like what did Pangea look like? Geography of the Ice Age, lands that could flood in our lifetime, or a more recent one, why is this lake pink? Hope you're able to take a look and enjoy the channel as much as I do. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, this is cool. Atlas Pro is on YouTube. You can just search Atlas Pro, ATLAS Pro, or youtube.com/C/Atlas Pro, the number one. They've got about 50 or so videos there. Check them out. It seems really cool. If you've got something we should look out for, email it to us, please. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
So I have to say, I have done a horrible thing, Brian, and I gave away a bunch of my books for free.
Tom, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. You do realize that, like, now that those are out there, every free book you give away becomes a free book to somebody else. It's like your free book is having sex with everyone who every free book has ever had sex with.
Yeah. And so all I can say is I apologize for tomsfreenewsletter.com, the past 2 issues, giving you links to all of my books for free. I was just trying to save Christmas, Brian. I just wanted everybody to have like an easy way to get a last minute digital gift for people.
I understand in the heat of the moment, like you're passionate about your project and everything gets all fiery and sparks are flying and you just blurt out something crazy like you can have my book for free. Oh my goodness, we're going to have to invent a time machine now.
Yeah. I will, however, be seeking counsel.
What do you mean?
That I mean, I'm seeking, well, not counsel. What's the other word that begins with C? Computers. I'll be seeking computers from Doghouse Systems.
Thank goodness. I'm going to put you in touch with my friends over at doghousesystems.com/rogue. That's where you can support the show. They're the ones that provided us with all the systems that power this studio. And if you use promo code ROGUE, you'll get a free SSD at checkout.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Fast and Furious 10 has shifted dates. You can see shift because it's just a few weeks. The next move in the franchise was planned for April 7th, 2023. It has now been moved to May 19th, 2023. Not what I wrote here, which is 20,232. It'd be really far. No, May 19th, 2023. This puts it in between Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is on May 5th that year, and Disney's live-action Little Mermaid on May 26th. A DreamWorks film, name not announced, moves from March 24th into that previous April 7th slot. But Fast 10 coming May 19th, 2023.
Still going to be about family, I bet. Disney Plus added support for Apple's Share Pay feature that lets people co-view videos. Wait, share play. Not play. That would be great if we could share paying for things. Share play feature that lets people co-view video over FaceTime. Share play already worked with Apple devices as well as NBA, TikTok, Twitch, Paramount Plus, and Showtime. A share play session can share a Disney Plus video with up to 32 people. You start the FaceTime call, then open up a Disney Plus app that'll have a notice about share play. You tap that and you want to start a video, and then all of a sudden everybody can see it and control the playback. You can even choose to keep the FaceTime call on one device like an iPhone and the video playing on another like an iPad or an Apple TV. All participants will need a Disney Plus subscription, of course, or for this to work, and the latest version of their Apple devices OS. Tom, this is something that I think we first speculated on like 8 or 9 years ago. It is so wild to see my 14-year-old daughter every single night. I walk up, she's chatting with friends, watching TV together on if not, on all kinds of versions of this.
Yeah, this is no longer a, will people want it? It's a, here's the latest service to join it.
I think Weird Am I has it perfect in the chat when he says it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Let's get into some ratings. Nielsen's The Gauge, which reports the usage of platforms, not individual shows, reports the viewing of Disney Plus rose 20% in November over October, thanks in large part to the Beatles documentary Get Back. Other aspects of this report, broadcast TV fell a point to account for 27% of total viewing time in the month. Cable took 37% and streaming 27% or 37%. Disney rose to 2% overall, behind Hulu at 3%, YouTube at 6%, and Netflix was the top streaming service with 7% of overall viewing. So once again, broadcast 27%, cable 37%, streaming 28%. and Netflix 7% on its own.
The weird part is that 20% rise is attributed to just one person watching all of Get Back. Congrats, Doug.
Yeah, it was that long. That's the uncut version of Get Back.
Netflix's own numbers came out for December 6th through the 12th. Money Heist stayed on top of non-English shows with 148 million hours, and Lost in Space topped English language shows. The third season of Titans took second place. Jurassic Works Camp Cretaceous Season 4 was next, followed by Season 1 of The Witcher in advance of the premiere of Season 2.
I think that means we know what the English language number one this week will be, which is The Witcher. T-Mobile announced the T-Vision Hub, a Google TV streaming stick. It includes a remote with power and input controls for a TV. Dongle includes an Ethernet port and runs Android TV OS 11. You get it free with the new T-Mobile Home Internet service, although retail pricing and release are unknown if you want to get it separately.
So the Ethernet port surprises me. Is that a little bit of a wink to the fact that Wi-Fi devices are a little bit sketch in terms of their consistency, or?
No, it's just old-fashioned at this point. Like 10 years ago, yeah, Wi-Fi was less compatible with streaming, but these days there's so many of these that don't. It's just, I don't know. It's almost an older.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because like here on our campus, like now that we have like the Eero mesh network, it's like if there's ever any dead space, just throw another puck in there, right?
Yeah, and especially with Wi-Fi 6, the lag is almost. It's almost disappeared. So it's unusual to see an Ethernet port. It's just kind of nice. Like, hey, if you want that option, if you're somebody who still doesn't trust it, then
I like that it's there. I still try to plug in via hardline whenever possible.
BBC America released a few images teasing Season 4 of Killing Eve. It debuts February 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern, but will stream a week early starting February 20th on AMC+.
Yeah, that's clever, huh?
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by that move, because it finally is saying the quiet part loud, which is, we all know how you're going to watch this. The inferior experience awaits you on cable television or what have you.
Well, I read it as a lot of you have AMC on a service, and so you're not paying for AMC Plus, but we'd really like to have your money. So we'll give you this a week early if you give us your money. Thank you.
Keep in mind, this is the final season, so it's not like you're losing anything by like it being like, oh, well, we got to. The show doesn't have to build momentum anymore. This is the end. So this is the
harvesting time, basically, where it's we got you. Please get in the new clubhouse.
All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front.
Andrew's letter that says, one of my very least favorite things in the world is that study that says spoilers don't ruin movies. They don't ruin movies, but they do ruin plot twists. Like knowing who Vader is in a certain movie. It does change how finding out felt. Part of the fun of being an MCU fan is the detective work, basically trying to piece together all the puzzle pieces to figure out kind of where stuff is headed. And then he also gives a shouts out to the fact that his friend was in the Hail Satan documentary, which was directed by the incredible Penny Lane, nice. Who I'm increasingly more fascinated by.
Yes, it doesn't ruin movies. It ruins plot twists. But the study basically argued that ruining plot twists doesn't reduce your enjoyment. The study says if you know the plot twist is coming, you still enjoy the story. If I'm remembering this study right,
what the study did was give you the very last paragraph first, and then give you the story. And those people enjoyed it more because they were engaged, because they at least had some idea. That's not the same as saying it's no big deal to reveal plot twists.
But the study revealed plot twist. Well, okay, I see what you're saying, which is they didn't give you all the plot twists.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying. To carry on from our discussion with Andrew Main, I do think that there are times when revealing a plot twist ahead of time is a jerk move, because it's a fun jolt to get that plot twist and go, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, right? We all love that. It's super fun. On the other hand, I think we tend to, because of that, fetishize plot twist as being the only thing to enjoy in a movie. And that, yes, if you ruin a plot twist, and maybe this is what Andrew's saying here, which is if you ruin a plot twist, you haven't ruined the movie, but you certainly have ruined that one aspect of enjoyment. And that's not ruining all of the enjoyment, but you have taken away one piece of enjoyment.
I suppose another example of this would be, imagine if you just tuned into, let's say, just the right opening of a particular episode of Firefly, and you were watching for about 4.5, 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, so it's a Western. And then suddenly it became clear to you that this was a space Western, and then you got much more interested. Now imagine that the point being, when you're pitching, you got to get somebody to bother to show up. And they're not going to show up if you're like, would you like to watch a Western? There's something, I don't know, something about it I think you'll like. And it's like, no, I'm not going to watch a Western. It's like, okay, fine. It's a space Western. Well, damn, I'll turn in for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have spoiled all of the news for the year. There's no more. There won't be any more news about cord cutting for the rest of the year.
We're literally going to have to make up new news, which is what we're going to do later.
We will not see you until there's more news, whenever that is, probably January 10th, but I'll tell you that in a second. Merrill Barr, thank you so much for being with us. If folks want to find more of what you're up to, what you're doing, where should they go?
You should go to twitter.com/Merrill Barr, MERRILLBARR. And if you stick around there, you'll likely see me also hopping on the Twitch, and I'll say it on there to do some holiday streaming, probably. It's all there. Everything's there.
By the way, Merrill Barr's Twitter feed is a treasure trove of things that I think you'll admit that you missed, that I missed, that we all missed. Did you guys see the animated Christmas special? The Ted Lasso one? Did you guys see this?
Yeah, it was like 5 minutes long, but it was fun. Yeah.
Ted Lasso claymation.
I only found out about it because I follow his Twitter.
Also because I tagged you.
I saw Merrill's tweet and immediately was like, oh, right. I think I saw that on my Apple TV and went and watched it. And it was like,
I'll tell you what,
apparently that was cute.
No one knows about it because it only has like 300,000 views.
Yeah, it's also not very good.
I disagree.
It was like a promo, like a really long promo. But yeah, I would not have known to go watch it if it hadn't been for you, Merrill. So go follow Merrill. Remember, all the best names have double consonants. MERRILL.
Double R's, double L's.
Yeah, take it from me, Brian Brushwood. Wait, no, double vowels. Double vowels are better.
Two B's. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Later this week, you're going to get the Killy Awards in your feed. Our picks for the greatest television shows and movies of the year. And then we'll be back with new episodes on January 10th. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. See you on the Killies.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.